Yeah, the madness we have today in the crypto space, it's not sustainable.
Mm,
So I'm not so sure that we need that to happen. It's more like it's inevitable. It will
yeah.
happen because it's crazy what's going on there. It's not sustainable. We can see that last month, April, 1 million tokens minted, and the vast majority of these tokens are worth zero right now because people already exit. Um,
Vinny, how are you, sir?
I'm fine, Matt. Thank you very much for asking. How about
Oh,
you?
yeah, no, very good, very good. I have to start off by saying congratulations, you're a new parent.
I am.
I don't want to air your too much of your personal life to the world, but how's it like? This is your first kid, right?
Yeah, it's my first. It's an interesting experience. Things change a lot. Your perception of the world, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that has been great. He has less than 10 days alive yet.
Wow.
So yeah, just discovering the world, and my wife is well. I'm well, and the baby is. I'm a bit tired. You can notice by my face, but yeah, all good.
I'm sure. You'll if you're not already, you'll learn to be functional on very little sleep usually.
I bet.
Yeah. All right. So let's kind of get into it. I wanna ease into it. I want to kind of start like higher level, and then we can start to talk about like more nuanced kind of stuff. But if anyone who's not familiar with you, I kind of like lay out in the description, like you work for Finbold. You basically do a lot of writing about cryptocurrency and that kind of, area within the market. How did you get into that? Was that something, I mean, once cryptocurrency came on the scene, were you like kind of an early adopter, or is this something that you just kind of got into recently?
Yeah, I was kind of late into crypto in general.
Yeah.
So I first heard about Bitcoin somewhere between 2015, 2016, something
Okay.
like that, and started learning about Bitcoin at that time, mainly because of the crypto anarchy thing and the cypherpunk manifesto.
Mm,
But I didn't dove too deep into crypto back then. I had a lot going on. I had my own company and I was trying to make a living,
mhm,
and I hadn't time to go as deep as I would like to. But it was more or less in the same time when I started learning about libertarianism and anarchy
mm,
and agorism and things like that. So it was kind of uh, I was learning both things together,
mhm,
but not as much as I would like to. I back in my interest into crypto back into 2020 with everything that we went through. Like I saw a lot of money being printed out, and I really told myself that okay, now it's time to focus on that. This is really important, and I am delaying that for all these years, and
yeah.
now I get to stop and learn about that. I had an e-commerce back then,
Okay.
so I was trying to figure out how I could accept other currencies than my own, than
Mm,
the Brazilian real. I'm from Brazil, so I went deeper into crypto because of that.
okay. And anyone who's not familiar with Brazil and the real, um, what's it been like in terms of like the stability in the currency? I mean, is it something that's fairly stable for you all, or have there been some issues with it in the past?
Yeah, the Brazilian currencies have a terrible history. The currencies changed a lot.
Mm,
I believe like 7 and 8 times in the past. Hyperinflation, and after hyperinflation, still we get the real.
mhm.
We have the real, I believe, since the 90s. I believe. I'm not
Sounds about
sure
right.
about that. Yeah, but more or less 30 years. And the real is also super volatile.
Mm,
It has lost its purchasing power against the dollar. We are now at five five real a dollar, but during 2020 we neared seven reals a dollar.
oh wow.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's rough.
It is.
Yeah, you end up getting a little bit of whiplash, I would imagine. I mean, like the prices of things must jump all over the place in that case.
Yeah, we are very impacted by everything because we in Brazil we are very reliant in importation. So yeah, the US currency exchange rate impacts us a lot. And right now, my salary, my payments are priced in the US dollar, so I'm good. But people here suffer a lot with that. It's seeing people losing their purchasing power month over month is really saddening. It's heartbreaking, and I just needed to find a way to get out, and I hopefully did.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. And you made a pretty bold step. I mean, you've been taking at least a portion, if not most of your pay in crypto. Is that right?
Yeah, 100% now. It was something that I was fighting really hard to get in the past 2 or 3 years, something like that. I started back in 2010, as I said, with small gigs. I received Bitcoin, small payments in Bitcoin, writing things about libertarianism and cryptocurrencies. I didn't know much at that time, and I was kind of a Bitcoin maximalist because I ignored everything else.
Yep.
But once I started to try to get more payments in crypto, then I realized that Bitcoin wasn't the best currency for that. So I went for other alternatives. And when I finally realized that this market is vast and we have a lot of good peer-to-peer money tools, then I really decided, okay, and now my goal is to stop dealing with real. I need to get out of it. And I want all my payments in crypto. And I started to drive my life for that goal. And I finally made it this year. I signed a deal with Finbold for them to pay me in crypto. And we are doing that. It's an experiment for them and for me, going so far, going all well so far. But let's see where it will lead.
That's awesome. And so Finbold is paying you. You can disclose if you want, or if not.
I can't disclose much details on that because of the contract, but I can say that I'm receiving my payments in crypto 100%.
That's fine. Yeah, no, that's okay. No, but that's awesome. Regardless of what kind of crypto you're getting or whatnot, I mean, that's an example of you actually are, or crypto in this case is transforming the existing world as opposed to just kind of, going off and building something brand new from square one, which is awesome. I love to hear that. So you had mentioned like Bitcoin and that kind of thing, and that you were a Bitcoin maxi in the past. What kind of changed your thinking on that? I think a lot of people are kind of going through that transition where what they knew was Bitcoin and crypto was Bitcoin to them, and since then they've kind of like parted ways with that, and they've seen that there's that it's not exactly a panacea, right? Like it's not the answer, it's one of the possible answers. What really kind of like guided your thinking as far as that goes and moved you away from at least being a Bitcoin maxi?
Bitcoin is great in theory. Sorry, I bet you're hearing my.
That's okay. The next generation, we're gonna get them going with crypto too. It's all right.
Yeah. So Bitcoin is great in theory. Bitcoin was an amazing revolution. We wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for Bitcoin and all that happened before Bitcoin in the cypherpunk community. So Bitcoin is great. Bitcoin is great in theory. When you read about Bitcoin and you understand the economic aspects and how Bitcoin solved these economic aspects, you get passionate about that. I was passionate about that. But when you try to use Bitcoin, it's not as good as most people think it is. And this happened to me. So when I was receiving my payments, my small payments for gigs, I lost a lot of money in fees, mainly because I was a noob back then. I didn't know much what I was doing, and I made a lot of mistakes. But most people will do, and I think this drives people away from real adoption of peer-to-peer money. So when I started making these mistakes and losing money and maybe doubting that I could even be using another form of money. Maybe it's just better if I stick with my credit card and take my cash back and move on. But I was really looking for a solution back then because we were living crazy days. I bet everyone remember. So I went to solutions. I found about Nano on Twitter, and I tried Nano, and I am a Nano supporter till this day. I really like the protocol, but it's not the only one. Nano kind of opened the doors for me that, okay, there is more than Bitcoin in crypto. I get up meeting Monero and later Bitcoin Cash that I thought was a scam because I fall for the maximalist propagandism. And Litecoin is great to use Dash. And I mean, there are a lot of good tools that you can use. There are better tools theoretically. There are better tools for your goals. People look for different things. It's normal. We are in a free market. People will look for different things in different tools and products. So this was eye-opening to me that there is more than Bitcoin in crypto. And then I started researching and end up driving my whole career to that. I sold my share in the e-commerce to my partner and dove deeply into crypto.
Yeah. It's I would say what's really impressive is the vastness of the industry, right? I think a lot of people don't fully understand how just wide ranging the use cases are. And I mean, it really is like the Wild West, right? I mean, I would liken it to the beginning days of, and I would love to hear kind of like your thought process on it. But for me, crypto is still in those kind of like beginning days almost of when, say, like the internet was becoming like a big part of life. And just people were using it in so many ways that originally weren't even conceived of. Like no one could even think of it. It was just kind of like a platform or a technology now that people were kind of just taking and running with it and trying to do things with it that hadn't been done before. I mean, the diversity of the projects that are out there is really incredible. I mean, like when you're looking at a specific crypto, what's the first place you're like, say it's completely brand new to you, you never heard about it, or just you've heard rumors about it. Where's the first place that you're going to do research? You going straight to the white paper?
Let me think about that. So I believe the first thing I do, trying to recall what I usually do, because it's kind of natural. I get interested and I start getting more interested about it, and I go. But I think I go to the community. I was saying something different, but rethinking about it, I think I go to the community. I ask some basic questions like go to X, Twitter, or Discord, or Reddit, or something like that, and I ask why this crypto. Why are you here? If people say to the moon price, I just ignore that completely. If people say like, oh, you can get a lot of money by mining it or by staking it, and no, not my interest. So I usually ask people building and people excited about this crypto why they are so excited about it, and if they hook me into that, then I think I'll go to the next steps. And I think my next step is trying it. So I have like a notebook where I note some old seeds that I don't use anymore in these testing wallets, and I just have this and okay, let me test this wallet, and I get a new wallet and I get a new seed and I try the crypto, and if I like it, I get a better seed and I do a better backup. And then I'll go to the white paper, to documentation and things like that. One thing that can happen sometimes is when I'm doing my work and I am writing about some crypto, I'm doing research. So I am reading white paper, I am reading their blog, the project blog, or things like that. So maybe sometimes I get interested in a project because of that, but most of the time it's organic. I like organic.
Yeah. I agree with you. You could get super kind of like nitpicky with it. I think a lot of people are one or the other. I think a lot of people either are super interested in tokenomics and the white paper and kind of like how it's structured. And then some people are super into, like you said, the community aspect of it. And for me, I mean, like the truth lies somewhere in between those two, right? And for me, in a lot of cases, the first question I'm asking is, what's the use case for this, right? Like, what's the hole it's trying to fill, or what's the need that it's addressing, right? And so that was one of the things that originally got me interested in Bitcoin, and it seems very similar to your backstory. Was, you know, the use case of just blockchain in general, and then, you know, Bitcoin being a crypto that was built off this technology. But the deeper that I looked, I was like, oh my God, there's a this thing has a use case here, and this thing has a use case here. And it was like, now all of a sudden I'm trying to figure out which of these blockchain technologies and cryptos that are built off of them, like you said, are having more development off the top of them and creating these ecosystems. I've actually been really underwhelmed by the ecosystem that Bitcoin has created, because really at the end of the day, the Bitcoin ecosystem is like miners and then people that are speculating on the price of Bitcoin. Some people have said, oh yeah, I pay for this in Bitcoin, I pay for that. I'm like, how long did you have to wait for your confirmation to come back? And they're like, oh, this one was pretty quick, it only took 2 hours. Right? Like, I mean, who wants to run the risk of taking payment and then not knowing whether or not you actually got what you're supposed to get 2 hours later, right? And that's really something that's stuck out to me, just kind of anecdotally, you know, about Bitcoin. Talk to me about Neo. I've done a little bit of reading on Neo. I mean, what really kind of like attracted you to it? And then, you know, what is it? How would someone kind of like use it or get involved with Neo?
Maybe we are talking about different things, but I don't know much about Neo, but
Okay.
Nano.
Oh, sorry, Nano. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. XNO, right? Like,
yeah, XNO.
yes,
yeah, no problem. Yeah, so Nano got me because of its user experience, mostly no fees and instant transactions. As you said, it doesn't make any sense in the real world for you to wait 2 hours for your transaction to be confirmed. And when you think about fees, it's another layer of worriness that I have. Like, maybe I want to pay something today and it's fine because fees are a bit low, but maybe tomorrow the fees will be 10 times higher than what they are today, and I will still need to use the network tomorrow for my spendings. So it doesn't make much sense. I think that having low, predictable, or no fees at all is a huge competitive advantage for any blockchain, and I think Bitcoin lacks that and Ethereum lacks that, but we gladly have other alternatives that don't. Being feeless, having zero fees for Nano, it's a challenge because there are problems that blockchains solve with fees that Nano needs to find other ways to solve them, like spam attacks and prioritization. I believe fees are the most intuitive way for prioritization and dealing with spam attacks, but they are not the most effective one. And Bitcoin is a clear demonstration of that. If we believe that originals are spam, I think spam is a tricky definition. It's a philosophical definition. What's spam, what's not. I mean, a permissionless network should be able to handle what people are using it for, being for an attacker or whatever. So Bitcoin demonstrates, if you believe that originals are spam and that Bitcoin use fees to protect from spam, and we can clearly see that the spam is not over and that the spam affected other users, then fees are not the most effective way to dealing with spam, because the spam exists for a reason. The spam is to prevent users from using the network. And when somebody spams a network and the fees increase to deal with the spam and it becomes unusable for the users, it achieves the same goal as the spam. So we are not solving any problem. So I really like how Nano try to think out of the box. And even when all the space is saying like, no, you can't solve spam without fees, you need fees. And Nano say, no, we are trying to do it different. It's an experiment. It's so far successful experiment, in my opinion, but it is still an experiment. And I really like experimenting things. And I think that we are at that stage where we can still experiment some things. But at one moment, we won't be at that stage anymore. But I like this approach to Nano. Nano it's fully distributed, has no inflation for over 6 years. So even some people don't like that much the initial distribution. I don't have a problem with that personally, but I understand why some people might, because of pre-mining and having a Genesis block and distribution from that without mining or staking or things like that. It has been 6 years. Then the whole distribution went through. So we went through like 2 cycles, and these coins circulated a lot. There were episodes where we had 10%, 15%, 20% of the supply circulating in 1 month, 2 months. So coins circulated a lot, coins changed hands a lot. Nano went from a pump that was purely speculative, in my opinion. It had nothing organic into that, no organic demand.
Yeah.
And then back down. So people were selling and buying and using it. So I think right now, the Cantillon effect, all the bad things that inflation can bring, has a lot lower effect on Nano because of this time, and because we don't there are no more Nano being issued over time. So I think this is a plus. This is a very strong attribute of Nano, besides the feelers and the instant transactions. And I really enjoy hanging out with the community. I think most of the community have the same ethos as I do. People are building, people are trying to find solutions for day-to-day use, for new use cases that have never, ever been possible before the existence of a protocol that has no fees and settles with deterministic finality in under a second. This is really mind-blowing, and we never had that before. So a lot of doors, a lot of new things open, and I think Nano has a community that is trying to take these attributes and build something new, and this is I love this. So this is one of the things I like of Nano.
That's awesome. Is there an opportunity for so I mean, like you had mentioned Monero before, right? There's constantly this discussion happening nowadays, especially after Roger Ver wrote Hijacking Bitcoin and his subsequent arrest, now awaiting extradition in Spain. There you go. There's a big question about anonymity, right? Like the ability, I mean, originally blockchain and specifically cryptocurrency technology came about with one of the main tenets being essentially trusted transactions without having to have an intermediary, but at the same time also not necessarily having to divulge the identity of the entity on either side of the transaction. So P2P, but completely anonymous, but also very high trust, right? I think we see that breaking down, at least in terms of Bitcoin and some of the other major cryptos that are out there, because of government action, as well as just kind of I would call it the greed of people that have been, kind of the bigger whales and the influencers of some of those projects. How does Nano operate on that level? Does Nano allow any level of anonymity, or is it one of these more kind of like transparent blockchains where you do have some kind of reasonable understanding of who the individual organization is on the other end of the transaction?
Yeah, so Nano lacks privacy by default,
okay.
And this is maybe one of the main critics I have on the project, and one of the reasons I really like Monero. But implementing these privacy by default things has trade-offs, and this would affect some characteristics of Nano that makes Nano unique. So I believe that we can have both. Nano lacks privacy by default. It's a transparent blockchain. It uses pseudonyms, like most of them. You have an address, and this is what people see. So people will see things that you allow them to see. Like if I link an address with my persona, people will know that this address belongs to me. But of course, with good practices, you can increase your privacy. But if people are really needing privacy, the most privacy they can get, like running from a dictatorial state, for example, or their life are on the line. I wouldn't recommend them to use Nano, despite I really loving the project and being a volunteer contributor. I would recommend them to use Monero or something else that has a better privacy experience. So this is one of the things I like about Monero. Like Monero is very unique in that sense because it doesn't commit. It's not commit the word. Sorry, I'm not native in English.
That's
but
okay.
Monero is very, very faithful to, very loyal to the privacy aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I think that if we need a blockchain that have the best privacy possible, Monero is there. I wouldn't recommend Nano in that occasion. But of course, good practice in all blockchains, if you take care of the information you give to the world, it's harder for the world to harm you somehow with this available information. Nano has some protocols to increase privacy. So we have Nanonymous, that is kind of a mixer. It's very different from other mixers and coin joins because of the properties of Nano, so very interesting. But of course, it can at some point be targeted by the same entities that are targeting Bitcoin privacy tools and things like that. So yeah, it's not ideal from that point of view, but I understand the trade-offs and why the developers won't implement privacy by default right now on Nano, and I'm okay with that. I have Monero.
Yeah. It definitely highlights the different use cases that are out there and the different attributes and why those are important. I think a lot of people have grown accustomed, or at least their expectation was that they could have one money or one currency that was going to solve all problems, right? I mean, that's what you get indoctrinated into thinking within the fiat currency model, right? Like, oh, well, the US dollar is going to fix everything, right? It's transactional, and it's, if you have cash, it's anonymous, and then you're like, oh no, there's serial numbers, they can track it, like that kind of thing, right? And I think a lot of people have gotten into that misconception where you could just have one thing and it be like the fix all kind of thing. They just want their life to be as the least amount of complication as possible, right? I do appreciate the fact that there are upfront projects out there that are like, you know what, we're not a privacy project, right? Like, if anything, we're actually kind of the opposite end of it, where everything's transparent and above board, and we want to make sure that the community understands that every single transaction is valid, and there's trust in that, as opposed to something where it's like, it would be used in more of like a dark transaction, right, where you don't necessarily know who's on either end of it, and something is passing, and we're not going to necessarily talk about specifics about what might be passing hands or whatnot, but I do think that there was a big misconception also at the beginning, where crypto was originally sold as this like completely anonymous, you can do whatever, right? Like when Ross Ulbricht started the Silk Road. And I think it turned out to be too good to be true, that you could have all of the transactional properties as well as complete anonymity built into it. And yeah, I think a lot of people had to reevaluate how they were looking at cryptocurrency from that aspect. So in terms of cryptocurrency and from like a financial standpoint, are you ever writing on, say, like the potential investability in this stuff? I mean, like, how do you see that landscape in terms of, do you think people should just have, like little pockets of cryptocurrency everywhere in case one jumps and the other one falls off? Or are there a couple of projects that you would say people really should focus on if they're trying to at least kind of retain the value of their assets, if not grow them?
It's tricky. It's a tricky question. Yeah, because we can't control how the market moves, and a lot of things influence. So you were saying that we don't need one single project to rule them all. Competition is good, and I think it's good from that aspect as well, because of money management. Finance management is part of every business, and every single individual should learn the basics of finance management. So you should be able to manage your finance. I think that for people in the US, it's a bit harder to understand that, because you have like a very strong currency. You have the US dollar that is a standard in the world. But when you live in a country like Brazil and you deal with a weaker currency, you learn how to manage exchange rates. So Brazilians are used to follow the exchange rate of Brazil, the Brazilian real against the US dollar or against the euro. If I want to travel to Europe, I need to follow the exchange rate of euro so I can buy more euro in the best opportunities, because the euro is far more expensive than the real.
Yeah.
If I want to go to the United States, I need to do forex management, even if I am not a forex trader, because I need to take the best out of my trip. So we are used to that, and business owners are used to that, mainly if you deal with import-export. In my e-commerce, I used to deal with import-export. So I need to follow the price of the Chinese yuan. I need to follow the price of the US dollar and the euro again. So it's part of our lives. And I think this is no different from cryptocurrency. So if you want, for example, like me, to live on crypto, I can't afford to have only Nano and Monero, besides them being my two favorite. I need to have more, because if for some reason a whale dump some of these currencies, or there is some manipulation, or if there is a bug in the protocol, because it can happen, they are software, and software can have bugs, although both of these networks are very battle tested, but bugs can surge. Bugs can surge in Bitcoin. The US dollar has bug. The Brazilian real has a worse bug. So I think it's smart to have different currencies. I don't think you need to, but it's smart, and you definitely lower your risk exposure. So if Nano fall, I can continue spending Bitcoin Cash. If Bitcoin Cash fall, I can try to spend Hive that I know that you are a fan of, and I made a surface read. I'm starting to learn Hive. So yeah, maybe it's good to have Hive as a backup, because it's our life that we're talking about. If you want to make a living of that and stop playing around and get out of the theory, and it's fine if for people that want to remain the theory, but if you want to get out of the theory, get out of the books and go to the streets, you need to protect yourself. And this is no different from crypto. So for people that are trying to live, to try to receive crypto as payments and try to use it, I say at this point, at this stage, it's very smart to don't stick to one single option. But if you are only an investor, I think you can be more picky and try to manage. I'm not sure if I consider myself an investor. I write about investment because I had to learn about it. I write about trading, and I know a bit about trading, but I don't put my money into trading. I don't leverage trading, things like that. Although I really know a lot about derivatives market, and maybe because I know a lot about it, I don't think it's worth to put my money into it. But
that's a interesting point. The more you learn about some of these marketplaces, the more you learn that you probably shouldn't be dabbling in them, right? Like, at least when it comes to, so I mean, on my channel, I talk a lot about, actually, people should probably be avoiding the stock market because they don't put nearly as much time into it as they should, and it basically means that they're going to get stolen from, right? Like, if you're not intelligent in an investment, I mean, granted, you could, it kind of works like lawyers, right? Like, you don't want to necessarily want a nice person as a lawyer. You want a lawyer who potentially is a piece of crap, but they're really good at being a lawyer, right? Like, that's kind of the way that your investment professional should be. They shouldn't be like a nice person. They should probably be like a complete dirtbag, but at least you can trust that they're like, you know, the best dirtbag and they're in your corner, you know? But so, yeah, you kind of like, you dig into some of these areas of investment and you're like, oh, the more I learn about this, like, the less I want to be involved in it, because it's just, I mean, it's basically like playing the lottery unless you are like on the inside and you have all these like expert tools and stuff at your disposal, you know. And actually, you kind of find out that the vast majority of people that are in that space are just as dumb as you are, right? Like they're just as ignorant as you are. They've fallen for some kind of propaganda or, you know, some line that's been repeated over and over and over again. And so that's what they then repeat to other people, and they sound smart just because they know what to say, you know. What's funny is you mentioned Hive. I don't want to get too far into it. I'm going to do an interview, and actually I've been like repeatedly refreshing Discord just to see whether or not he's going to get on with me. But so a guy who created a competitor to YouTube, his name is Dan, and Dan Hens, and he created ThreeSpeak, which is on the Hive network, and they're like a competitor to YouTube. But what I like about Hive, and maybe Nano has this same component to it as well, and I'm getting into more projects that do this. For me, the real beauty of blockchain technology and crypto is that you get to monetize your own data, right? And so I know a lot of people get into crypto because, and I share the same perspective, they don't like how fiat currency is manipulated. But in addition to that, from the more kind of like techie side of things, I love the idea that you can take the data that you're creating every single day in your life and monetize that and earn off of it. Whereas in the past, there's been essentially a cartel, right, of companies and governments that they get all of the benefit from the data you're creating, you know. And that's really what I end up getting out of the Hive network. Do you do any passive like mining? So like I have like a miner that pulls data from my driving. I have another miner that's going to go up on the roof. That's basically kind of like almost like a weather station and like a sky monitoring system. Do you do any passive mining, whether it be computer-based mining or some of these other things?
No, mining not. I have some very, very small stash in Stack
Okay.
for on Ethereum, mainly because it gives me a subscription for Sentiment, the platform data that I use for work. So if you stake Ethereum with their coin, you get a subscription. So I have that, and I'm getting some fees from that, and that's fine. It's the deepest passive income I'm receiving, and I have some stake in Radix too, but it's very small. I'm learning the project, so I did the stake to be motivated to learn more about it. Mm-hmm. So not any meaningful income from that aspect.
Okay. No. Yeah. It's I think it's going to be a growing space. My one concern is that so much money has found its way into the blockchain and crypto space that it feels like it's a bubble that needs to pop so that the next generation of projects can then succeed and move forward. Do you have kind of like a similar feeling, or do you think that it's just going to kind of keep, headed upward?
Yeah, the madness we have today in the crypto space, it's not sustainable. So I'm not so sure that we need that to happen. It's more like it's inevitable. It will happen because it's crazy what's going on there. It's not sustainable. We can see that last month, April, 1 million tokens minted, and the vast majority of these tokens are worth zero right now because people already exit from them. So it's not sustainable. I think the free market, if the free market is allowed to work, because if there is coercion and a lot of regulations and a lot of things preventing the free market to work, maybe the bad things will last a bit more than what was desirable. But I think I agree with you. I think there is a lot of things that must be cleaned out for the legit projects to thrive. And I think they also bring a lot of noise for the mainstream. Other people look to crypto and see all the hype on the madness and the West world that is crypto, and it kind of make them away, and it will attract people that want that madness. So it's a vicious cycle. If the main focus is gambling, you will attract gamblers. It's inevitable. If the main focus is use, or innovative solutions like you described on Hive, monetizing data and owning your data and things like that. If this was the focus, then it would attract more people looking for these solutions that maybe even know that they already exist.
Yeah.
But they don't even get to know Hive or other stuff because there is a lot of noise and a lot of distractions before they get to it.
Yeah.
So I think that cleaning up the madness will help a lot the legit projects to grow. And I think that it will be inevitable unless the SEC says like, okay, Nano, Monero, and Hive and Bitcoin Cash are all forbidden. You can't trade anymore, but you can trade sheep whenever you want. You can trade Pepe coin whenever you want and things like that. So yeah, people will trade more Pepe and people won't get to know the other things that you and I like more. So
yeah,
they
definitely love picking winners and losers based off of what they can control, right? Like, I mean, that's a commonality amongst most. I mean, we share a philosophical connection in terms of our distrust, if not pure hatred, for centers of control and power that basically manipulate the life around us. What's funny is like we were talking about the mania. I pulled up a couple of your articles, so hopefully I'm not like putting you on blast here or anything like that. But the one that I pulled up, and I talk a lot about this, like talk about mania. You had just written this yesterday, I think. This was about the GameStop and AMC pumps that happened in the last couple of days. Some dude goes out on a crypto trading platform and buys the meme coins that are basically associated with GameStop and AMC. I guess, was this on Binance or somewhere? Oh, on Solana, I guess one.
Yeah, this was on Solana, on the Radium decentralized exchange.
Yeah, and turned 155K into like 1 million and in like 2 days. And this is like the perfect example of what you were just talking about. If this is kind of what gets people in, like into the space, right? That kind of like back and forth is going to cause more people that are taking these wild, insane bets as opposed to actually trying to find those projects that are, like really of substance, right? That are kind of like moving things forward and, they're of quality as opposed to just kind of these, pump and dump schemes and things like that we've seen recently. That's one of the reasons why I said, like, we almost kind of need a crash to get all that fast action money out of the system and really then kind of get down to it and see like, okay, what's left and what actually has this base of support from people that are going to use this in a productive way, moving forward. How often do you write on Finbold? I mean, is it basically an article a day, a week? How often do you typically put stuff out on there?
It's four articles a day, 5 days a week.
Wow.
So yeah, 20 articles a day. Finbold has a very dynamic model. It's a different model from a magazine, for example, where you have less articles and more in depth. So articles are shorter and in a higher volume.
Yeah.
And of course, we are driven by our readers' interests. So things that work, things that our readers like to read, we write more about them. Sure. Not necessarily what I like writing about. For example, I don't like to write about some random dude that made $1 million.
I'm sure.
but I try to follow my morale, and I always try to leave a message in these stories. But I need to do them because the company needs to profit, and I need to feed my newborn.
Yeah.
So I think that as far as I remain honest about things, if people want to read the story of a random dude that made $1 million and it's not even liquid, and I warn about that in the article, so be it. I will write about that, and maybe this gives the opportunity for me to educate people somehow. So people take this and, I want to do that, and they are reading, and there is like another heading saying not everybody is getting money from that. These other 3 dudes lost money instead of getting money. And why they lost it? Because and I go deeper. So I think it's also an opportunity to educate people. But yeah, it's clear when in my role of as an editor, to see how when I write about Wasabi Wallet being forced to leave the US, and I get like 10 times less readers than this story, it's clear what people are looking for, and I'm not pleased with that. It's not something that I like, but it's my job, so I do it well, and I really like writing, and I think that is this opportunity to also educate people in this kind of stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a clear evidence of what's going on in crypto in general.
The space needs the space needs someone like you who's writing about all of it, right? Like, as opposed to, I know for a fact that a number of outlets cherry pick just for those stories, and they wouldn't even have gone to the depth that you did. And yeah, I mean, like, a lot of people forget that, especially when they look at these, Wall Street Bets or GameStop and AMC meme stock kind of action. They're like, oh man, I could have made that amount of money. They really need a dose of reality from someone who understands that on one side of the trade, yeah, someone made a lot of money. And then on the other side of the trade, lots of people lost, right? And it's not always just, the Wall Streeters that are on the winning or the losing side. It's average people, right, that are drawn into this, right? So I completely appreciate that. That's a huge volume, man. I mean, like, is it easily doable? Like 4 articles a day? Is that something that just kind of comes easy? Or are you sometimes like you've written 3 and like the 4th one, you're like, oh crap, what the heck am I going to write about? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it happens. It happens. I say that the hardest part is deciding what to write about. It's the trickiest. Things go a bit natural to me when I have something to write about. I can go. It goes a bit naturally. And our articles, if you notice, they aren't long. So they are shorter articles. It's the model we follow on Finbold. Usually they will have like around 400 words or something like that. It's not a lot. So I can do that. I not to be. I don't like false modesty. I am pretty good in my work. I really like writing, and it really comes natural to me. So it goes, but it can be challenging. Yeah, mainly when trying to decide what you want to write about. But most of the things will be more or less more of the same. You take some information, you need to check some information to make sure they are correct and they are based on facts. But this is the most energy driving part of the job. Writing, when I start writing, it happens.
Yeah. No, that's good. My wife gets mad at me because she's like more artistic, like visual art. And I write an article a day. So like mine are a little bit longer than yours, but in the aggregate, you're writing way more than I am. And she'll like sit down next to me while I'm writing an article, and I'm just like, flow of consciousness, like it's just coming out. And I'll hear her like under her breath, she'll be like, I hate you. She just doesn't operate that way,
I am on the zone. Don't talk to me. I'm on the zone. Let me.
That's funny.
No, yeah, but my wife writes far more than I do. She's a writer. She's a fictional writer, and I can't compete with her. She's great. Yeah.
It's just you're right. Like sometimes you just kind of hit that flow. Like you almost sometimes you get writer's block. So you're just like, oh man, what the heck am I going to write about? Or what am I going to say about this topic? And then some other times you just kind of, that first sentence goes down and it's just like 15, 20 minutes later, you have, a page or two that you didn't have before. I never really had a huge appreciation for writing until I started kind of writing about finance. And I guess it just has to do with, the subject matter and like what juices you up, what energizes you. Is this something you want to do for like the rest of your career? Like, or is it something that, is this a hustle that you have like another kind of pet project on the side that you like, or is this it? You just want to write and do crypto and that's it?
Yeah, I discovered that as my goal, but I can change. Maybe I can change my mind in a few years from now. I have changed my mind a lot.
Yeah.
But I discovered this writing passion as a job when I started with crypto, because this was the way I found about getting some money while also working with crypto. I'm not a developer, so let's write about things and people want to read, and maybe people will want to pay me for that. And people want to pay me for that, and I like doing that. So I see no reason to changing that. I really want to continue. I really would like to write more about the things that I care more about, like freedom and anarchy and privacy and using money, but we need to balance things. So in the meantime, I know you like the investing side of it a lot more than I do, but yeah, I think we'll manage. Things are learnable, and as long as I am getting my payments in crypto and writing and having the chance to educate people somehow, I think I'll continue doing that.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I appreciate the back and forth that you've had with people too on Twitter. And that's how I really kind of started to pay attention to the stuff that you're putting out there, because you take a very measured approach to it, and it's very logical. Like, you actually want to talk mechanics and how things work, as opposed to, like I said, other people that just kind of get enamored with the sayings and the catchphrases and the propaganda, that gets put out there, the branding. Let me shift gears a little bit. I don't want to keep you for too long, because I know you're a new dad, so I want to make sure that the baby's taken care of. But let me ask you, have you been paying attention very much to, and this is more of a political question, but what's happening over in Argentina? I know that Brazil's a big country, Argentina's a big country in South America, so there might be some familiarity there, even though you're not literally next door to each other. But has that really kind of been a focus in Brazil? Have you heard very much about Javier Milei and what's going on down there?
Yeah, the libertarian community is very strong in Brazil. I think because we need to be. Brazilian politics they grows. All politics grows, but Brazilian a bit more. And Argentina is right, our neighbor.
Yeah,
it's right and next door. So I believe we have a lot to learn from that, and I believe that the Brazilian community in general also know that, for the better or for the worse, there are people that want to look at Javier Milei in Argentina and say, okay, this is how we don't want to do things. The leftists and people that don't like his views. Other people, like myself, for example, I'm very skeptical on Javier Milei, just making sure to make it clear here. I really like what he say, but I'm not sure if he believes what he say. So I won't support him publicly. But I know people that are supporting him, and yeah, it's a recurrent topic. We are talking a lot about that here.
Yeah. For me, I agree with you. It's one of those things where because of what he says, like, I have a lot of hope for that situation. But obviously, I'm very skeptical of anyone who would want power, period, regardless of what they say their politics or their economic background is or whatever. And so it's very much a, okay, I'll believe it when I see it, right? Like, when it actually happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there have been some reassuring things. There have also been some concerning things that have happened out of Argentina recently. But yeah, it's definitely something I think the world should really be paying attention to, because at the very least, it marks a very dramatic shift in perspective and philosophy on the part of a very large country. And seeing this play out could be the especially if it plays out for the positive for the people of Argentina, I think could be a huge rallying cry for people around the world to finally figure out, kind of the game that's being played within the political, world that is effectively used to control them. I love the fact that what do you make the distinction? So, like, in terms of like saying that you're an agorist, have you looked at, say, like, anarcho-capitalist philosophy, and you make a distinction there? Like, I mean, I was asked this. I actually recently did an interview with a guy who's an adamant ANCAP, and he's like, well, why do you say agorist versus ANCAP? I mean, in your mind, is there a big rift there between those two?
I don't know. I don't go as deep as that for the labels. I just say I'm agorist because I think it fits better. But I like the anarcho-capitalist view as well. I think I believe in both. I say agorist because I believe that, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but anarcho-capitalists are more on the theory side of things, and agorists. Well, I'm trying to live the things that are in the books right now. So that's why I call myself an agorist. Maybe I'm wrong in my definition, but yeah, I think I am more keen to the ethos of the agorism. But I also like the anarcho-capitalist view a lot. I think that we need capitalism for the volunteer exchange of private property. That is what I believe. And if people call that anarcho-capitalist, I'm anarcho-capitalist. If people call it agorist, then I'm an agorist.
Yeah.
You can correct me if I'm wrong. You probably know better than I do.
No, that's the one of the most rational explanations I've heard, because I've also heard other people say that agorism is the purest actual application of libertarian and anarchist philosophy, right? And the key piece being application. And I've noticed a lot of people, and you could always make the argument that like people use labels, without knowing what the actual label is, and so they can end up saying that they're one thing and their actions speak. I mean, this is like Javier Milei in a nutshell, right? Like, will his actions actually line up with the label he's using? And so a lot of people can come in and say, oh, I'm this, I'm that, when truthfully it's their actions that end up dictating whether or not they actually are embodying that. And I would agree with you. If we're talking property rights or something like that, I mean, most people would hear what I have to say and they'd be like, well, he's obviously like an anarcho-capitalist. But when it comes down to it, I care more about the actual, practical usage of that philosophy, and abiding by it. So
it's also tricky to stick to labels because, for example, the material the content, the theory that arrives in Brazil may be different than the theory that arrives in the US, because there is translation and things. The message is always, so some part of the message is always lost when you translate things. Yep. So maybe in Brazil we define things one way, and if you read the same book in English and in Portuguese and in Spanish, and you are native or you are used to these three languages, you maybe take three different messages from them. So that's why I think we shouldn't be as focused on the label, because we can define things differently depending on where we are.
Yeah, I definitely think we need anarchist unity and we need crypto unity. And if we had those two things, right, like everyone understanding that we're competitive, but at the same time we're trying to reach kind of at least go in the same direction, I think the world and those communities would be a lot better in terms of how things play out here. So all right, I've kept you for an hour. I want to say thank you so much for the time that you're willing to dedicate to this. I definitely want to chat more with you in the future, and maybe we can talk more about kind of like current event type stuff in the crypto space. But with that, where can people find out more information about your writings and what you're working on? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, good.
So on my Twitter account on X, Vini Barbosa, BR from Brazil. You can find more information. Is there where I'm most active, so I will always be updating things there. Some of the articles I like the most, I'll share there. I'll be talking to people a lot because I like talking to people. I like asking questions and challenging some beliefs, being like playing the devil's advocate. I like doing that. And I think people may know better about me as well while I'm doing that. So probably the Twitter account, the X account, is a better place for further interactions. And I love interacting with everybody. So I don't care if you have one follower I don't mind. If you have something good to say, I'll be there to listen to.
Awesome. I love that.
And thank you for your open doors, Matt. It was really a pleasure to be here. And I think we are very alike in a lot of our thinking and our beliefs.
Yep.
And yeah, I really I'm looking forward to talk to you more about stuff.
I appreciate it. Yeah. With that, I'm going to hit the end of the record button here, but I want to say thank you to you for taking the time. So, and good luck with the new baby. I think that's awesome. Creating the next generation of agorist crypto enthusiasts. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, brother.
Be well.